Hey everyone, Theron Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast. Tonight we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to do a special edition for the 2022 Major League Fishing RedCrest event happening next week in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The tournament is going to be held out of Grand Lake of the Cherokees. That's my home lake. Grove, Oklahoma is where I grew up and was raised and graduated high school. So very excited to talk about Grand Lake of the Cherokees tonight. Real quick, next week is RedCrest, as we just mentioned. We will be at the expo, the Major League Fishing Outdoor Sports Expo. So make sure you come by booth 2214, see Revital Outdoors. We're going to have a $500 giveaway. We're going to have a show special on all of our products, and we're going to be handing out some samples as well as if you're a tournament angler and want to talk about pro staff opportunities, we will have representatives there in the booth, including myself and Kyle Smith, the owner of the company, there to talk to you. So please come by the booth. Again, that's 2214. Tonight, we're going to talk to Mr. Marcus Sykora. Marcus is an angler out of the state of Missouri. He fishes the BFL Ozark division. He fishes the Central division of the Toyotas and a lot of other team tournaments out of the state of Oklahoma. But Marcus has a lot of great history on Grand Lake of the Cherokees. He's won multiple tournaments there. He just got done with the second place finish in a team and individual tournament series there this last weekend. So a lot of great history on Grand Lake. He's going to give us some insights to what he feels like the tournament will be won on next week and how he feels like the RedCrest anglers will do. Before we get started, as always, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can get notified when all of our content is dropping. And then also check us out, Revital Outdoors, on Facebook and Instagram. And finally, if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, we're a premium CBD company. We make premium CBD products for all the outdoor enthusiasts. So be sure to check out our website, www.revitaloutdoors.com. You can purchase all of our products there off our website. And if you're interested in pro staff position, click on that pro staff tab, fill out the form, and we'll be happy to review that and get you on with Team Revital. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Marcus in, the man, Marcus Sykora. How you doing this evening, bud?
Doing awesome, man. Happy to be with you, Darren.
Yeah, appreciate it. Love the background already. As you can see right behind Marcus, he is a very phenomenal BFL Toyota Series Opens angler. You've had a great career. You've never fished that national level, but you have really amassed a great career with what you've done. But, tell us a little bit about Grand Lake. I know you just had a tournament there a couple of weeks ago, and I think you won the tournament or got either a top 5.
Yeah, second. There were the last 2 weekends in a row. There was an Ozark Mountain Team Trail. As a team event, got second. Then the Solo Pro Series was there this last weekend. Obviously, it's a solo event and got second in that as well.
Good for you, bud. Good for you. So,
yeah, it was awesome.
Well, Matt, tell us a little bit about Grand Lake and what you like about it and kind of how you approach it in the springtime. That's honestly the best time to get on Grand, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like it in the fall, too. But, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I live at Lake of the Ozarks. And, Lake of the Ozarks has first of all, you got to have a bunch of fish in it, and Grand Lake and Lake of the Ozarks are two amazing fisheries. They've got tremendous amount of diversification and change, and you can find everything from crystal clear water to colored water. So kind of whatever you want to do and however you want to do it is kind of what makes it a lot of fun, I guess you'd say. Grand Lake to me is kind of like a different playground for me, and that's why I love it so much. And the reason why I say that is because Lake of the Ozarks, I have so much history. Right. I mean, so much. I know, like in both lakes, you got to catch a bunch of big ones to win. But on Lake of the Ozarks, you have to do, if you're not catching 4+ pounders in this particular area, then I know you go to this particular area to do it. Or if that doesn't work, then you go to this particular area to do it. And so you a lot of times will take the same method of catching them, just do it in different sections. What I love about Grand Lake is I don't have any holes. I don't have any spots. There's not like, oh man, I can't wait to go fish this. The more I'm down there, the more I learn about it. And the thing I love about it is all the little individual nuances. So whenever I go to Grand Lake and whenever I tackle Grand Lake, it's all about putting the puzzle together while you're there. Yesterday, the other thing about Grand Lake, I've been on a lot of different lakes. The other thing about Grand Lake is those fish are very, very fickle. And they're very, what I would call, timing oriented. There's a ton of pressure. Yeah. They know when the pressure's around, and they know how to avoid it, and they know how to evade it. Then maybe they're going to get real tight to boat docks. Maybe it's going to get real tight to some sort of piece of cover or something like that. So that's a long-winded answer to telling you that, man, I just love Grand Lake because it's the most amazing pattern fishing. Grand Lake of the Cherokees, and then like Table Rock Lake are my two favorite lakes to go and just pattern fish, because you can be doing the right thing in the wrong area and still win.
Mm-hmm. That's a
That's
fact.
what I love about it.
That's a fact. So we take a look at Grand Lake just from my history, especially in the springtime, when you don't get those real heavy rains and it muddies the entire lake up.
Yeah.
It's just stable conditions. The lake is still a little bit low from the winter drawdown in the
Yeah.
springtime. But are you an angler that once you launch out of Wolf Creek, are you an angler that goes right and heads up the river, get that dirty water that's always dirty year round? Or are you going down by the dam and try to chase that clear water down by Horse Creek?
I try to spend most of my time between Duck and Wolf, that middle section. And it's just because it's big enough for me that I can kind of spread out and kind of, get away from some people. I mean, think about that area. You got Shangri-La. Some guys may never leave Shangri-La. You got Honey. Some guys may never leave Honey. You got obviously Horse. And then you got, all of the other various creeks that are in there as well, and Duck as well, and Wolf. And that Wolf Creek area is my favorite, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Because I love fishing shallow. A lot of these lakes around here, Lake of the Ozarks and things like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, in the spring when they're coming, you catch them shallow, but they're usually set up on some sort of structure oriented, or they're cover oriented, and it's, 12 plus foot of water. Right. What I love about Grand is, like, I mean, it's power fishing, and it's usually in less than 3 foot of water. And that Wolf Creek is the most conducive for all of that, from Wolf to the mouth of Elk River, Red 11, all of that stuff in there is just so good. It's got a lot of fish. There's a ton of release fish that are in those areas. There's a ton of fish that live in those areas. It's got a ton of rock. It's got a ton of wood. And I love that area. And what's interesting about it this year, that Wolf Creek area, what I would call, is probably about as clear as I've seen it. It's green water, and it's about 2 foot visibility. And that's really, really been nice for an out-of-town guy. And I think some of these RedCrest guys are going to figure it out, because there's so many pieces of wood and so many pieces of cover there that you didn't know was there because it was in mud. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, 360 and live and all the stuff that I use, I mean, yeah, that's great, but you just can't keep your eyes on that, glued on those electronics when you're fishing less than 4 foot of water. So I didn't know there was and there may not have been a log there last year. You know what I'm saying? Because it changes so much. I didn't know there was a piece of cover there. I didn't know that was there. And so those are the things that those fish are starting to get on down there. And I think those guys are going to hit the nail on the head, and they're going to crush their heads in down there whenever they show up.
I think they will too. I am curious. You're talking about a very good part of the lake, a very dear to my heart area of the lake. Have you ever fished Dinosaur Island?
I'm not the best with name. Which one is Dinosaur Island?
So it's on the south end, just right out. So if you go straight across from Duck Creek,
the mouth of Red 11.
Yeah, and there's like that little fork.
Yeah.
And then there's a dinosaur, and there's a dinosaur right there on that island.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. That's a tremendous place, man, to catch them.
Don't go back up in there. There's no fish in there. Just stay away from there. Stay out of there. Just don't do it.
Man, brother, I'm here to tell you, that lake is like Lake of the Ozarks, which we're so lucky. I know you grew up there, and, with me living here, I'll tell you what, if it's wet, there's a chance there's one there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're just great fisheries, and that's a great area, But I really, really, I just like to stay between, once again, Wolf and Duck more than anything, because there's just so much diversification, so many different watercolors. You can be in Horse Creek, and the mouth of it be crystal clear, and the back of it be muddy, and throwing a painted blade spinnerbait, and the mouth of it, I'm throwing a jerkbait. I mean, it's just, there's so much diversification there, right there within, a 2-minute boat run, and every one of those areas got it. The only thing I don't like about Grand is when the wind blows really, really hard, it gets really, really rough.
It can get pretty gnarly. I've seen wakes out there as bad as Texoma. I've seen days that were even worse than Toledo Bend. Same wind conditions. 25. When you get that north wind, it can get pretty hairy. But you live on a lake that can get hairy. Lake of the Ozarks, it's not one to mess around with.
No, yeah. It's different. It was a different kind of way, but we don't have any what I would call big open areas, right, where the wind can really. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've seen this thing bucking, but man, dude, if it gets over 20 miles an hour, I don't care what north or south, there's a corridor somewhere, around Shangri-La that you're going to get hurt, and you're going to have to take your time, and you're going to have to plan to get back. And these guys are good enough. They're going to know all that. But
if you're going north and you come around Shangri-La and you're going back toward the bridge to go to Wolf Creek, I've been in for weigh-in at Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
I've seen it take an hour in a 21-foot bass boat to get
No doubt.
around that corner and get all the way to the bridge. And I mean, you can see the bridge. That's what's crazy about it. And it has taken sometimes an hour to get through those waves. And then if the water's up and muddy, you got floaters that you're dealing with. So it can be a pretty.
It gets very, very trying. Like, and there's that, those rock croppings run out there quite a little ways in some of those spots. You kind of got to pay attention while you're down there. Make sure if you're running around anything related to the bank, you got to have your stuff kind of zoomed in a little bit on your mapping, or else you think you can get through there. Excuse me. And that's some nasty old rock, man. It'll win every time against that skeg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It'll get you. So thinking about bait selection, you talk about the Wolf Duck Creek area, great, phenomenal, part of the area. You talked about the green water. I'm not going to mention a whole lot about that because I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's what anglers need to look for, honestly, down in that area. It's what a lot of anglers were very successful with in the 2016 Bassmaster Classic. I look at the Classic in 2016 that Edwin Evers won as the last major championship tournament that was on that lake.
Yeah.
And a lot of anglers, with the exception of Edwin running up the river that last day, a lot of anglers were down there and they were catching fish. So as far as bait selection, I know you mentioned throwing a blade with a painted blade spinnerbait. Obviously, a blade in Oklahoma is just, you have to have it on the deck. You mentioned a jerk bait. What other baits are you going to kind of gear toward, and maybe what color patterns?
Well, I think without a doubt. So last weekend we had, probably caught 30 to 35 keep 2 weekends ago, and the team probably got 30, 35 keepers and caught them all on a jerk bait. Water temp was 42 to 44. But they were pretty active. Like, you could fish it erratically. You didn't have to pause it very long, and they absolutely choked it. Kind of wish I had a big blade to try it. I didn't come with a big blade because they were so aggressive on that jerk bait that I think that I could have maybe caught one on a blade. But come back this last week, we had one little episode of cold weather here in the Midwest, hopefully the last one, and it knocked that water temperature back a few degrees. And so that was 42, 43. I came back for a half a day in the middle of the week, saw as high as 51, launched my boat last Saturday. It knocked it back down to 44. 46 was the highest water I saw. So what I did, just for what it's worth, is in the morning, the fish were pretty lethargic, and they weren't completely up on the bank. They were set up, maybe some deeper water pushing in on some gravel or a swing or something like that. And I caught them on a jerk bait. Caught a 5-pounder first. My first keeper I caught was a 5-pounder, and on a jerk bait, and the pause was probably about 6 to 8 seconds. And then I noticed, like, all of a sudden I wasn't catching them. Like, it was steady. It wasn't hot and fast and furious, but it was steady, and I knew it was going to be an afternoon bite. So after that, I picked up a crankbait, and I went to the bank, and I went churning and burning, and absolutely it blistered them. I needed to, so I was throwing, 2 3/4, 3-pound fish over my shoulder. I just needed one more big bite and never got it. But needless to say, these RedCrest guys are going to destroy them. First of all, really pretty much any way they want to. I caught my 3 or 4 for the first time on wood, cranking wood. And so these guys are going to destroy them cranking. They're if the conditions are right, they're also going to set up on those, what I would call those swings that are leading into pockets. Those big ones are going to start staging up at the mouths of those pockets to shoot in there. And these guys are good enough to know, they're going to run 3 or 4 pockets to see if they're in them. If they're in them, great. If they're not, they know where they're going to set up before they push in them. And during that RedCrest event, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe, it started slow rolling a big blade out there at the mouths of those pockets. And by the end of the event, blazing a little square bill or a chatterbait or something like that in the backs of the pockets. But it's going. And the other thing about Grand Lake that I think your listeners may or may not know, as far as any lake that I've ever fished in the Midwest anyways, they move the fastest. They absolutely, like, you can be so locked in on a pattern where they're staged up at the mouths of those pockets and crushing their heads in, you know, I mean, I'm talking about like dirty 30 kind of stuff for the Midwest. I mean, they're big and they will get up there and they will get predictable. And then all of a sudden, just like that, they vanish and they shoot in those pockets and get tight to those docks. And so the other player could possibly be, if the guys that need to slow down, if they get lethargic or if they get their heads beat in, flipping a brush hog behind a boat dock or flipping their favorite jig behind a boat dock, something tight, something underneath the walkway, something putting it somewhere where nobody normally puts it there, and they very well might blow it out doing that too. It's just they're just now that first wave is coming, and by the time they get there, the first wave will be there, the second wave will be setting up.
Well, I'm going to throw out something that I actually, after I got done talking to you, planning this podcast, and we were talking about what you had just mentioned. There's a moon coming.
Yeah,
and that's going to make a big difference. And you were talking about how the fish can just change. You're talking dirty 30, and it just changed in a blink of an eye. What Marcus is really referring to is Theron's practices back in the BFLs in high school during the week. And then Saturday come around, and it's like, yeah, thank you, Grand Lake. I won practice.
I had that last year in the Toyota series. It was right about this time, and maybe about the time of RedCrest is when it was.
Right,
dude. I'm telling you, man. I mean, I had the hooks like cut off my spinner baits and still seeing dirty 30s, and then like the first day of the event, they were gone, and I was like, how in the and the thing about it is too is like, that time of year, once again, that feeding window is still so unbelievably important. So, the afternoon's so much better. So I start off trying to do something, fish around, kind of get comfortable, try to find something, make sure I'm not missing something. Then it's 9 o'clock, no big deal. 11 o'clock, no big deal. They're going to fire at 1 o'clock. They don't fire. And I'm like, oh crap, now what? Next day, I picked up a Zoom Mag Lizard and a real light sinker, and I started flipping it around pockets on wood and docks and absolutely crushed their heads in. I'm like, if I would have done this yesterday instead of being so damn hard headed, knowing that there was a dirty 30 to be caught out here, I would have changed. But these guys are good enough, and they're, that score tracker. I've never been in an event, but I'll tell you what, that score tracker, I think in this situation, don't get me wrong, I imagine it'll drive you crazy, but it'll also let you know if it's going on. So, so those guys will know when that feeding period is. If all of a sudden everybody's lighting up the scoreboard, well, if you're not catching them, you better figure it out real quick. But while everybody's slowing down, maybe that might give these guys a little bit of chance to explore and kind of, hey, let's push in a pocket. Let's pick up a Texas rig. Let's do something where we're not mashing volume to figure it out. And then when they figure it out, it's over.
And depending on who's doing well in the tournament,
right?
Okay, let's say if you go out there and KVD, Zach Burge, Edwin Evers, those guys start really crushing them. That tells me they're throwing reaction baits.
That's right. Yeah.
If Jacob Wheeler's crushing them, who knows? He could be throwing a crankbait or a little Demiki rig out in 100 feet of water in the river ledge or something. Who knows what that guy's up to?
Right.
So I think you're going to see, guys that have had a history power fishing. They're either going to excel, or the guys that slow down and finesse fish a little bit are better equipped with a finesse rod in their hand. That could go down.
No doubt. It's a great event because I promise you they're coming.
They're coming, and I predict it's going to be one of those events that's going to get better throughout the tournament. I think your best day, I truly believe the guy that makes the top 10, the angler that makes the top 10, could catch over 100 fish on that final day.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I don't even know what the weights could look like, but you're right. I mean, that's the other thing with Grant. It's just so full of fish, and they cubby, and you get in the right little area, and you have it to yourself for 2 hours, it could get dangerous.
I'd like to see, Grand is a great lake. It's always, been a phenomenal bass fishing lake, but I would like to see it just one time with grass and lily pads and just see what it does.
Oh my. Yeah, no, me too. I mean, that's I agree. If we could get some hydrilla in there, man, I might move down there.
I think it would give Gunnersville and Sam Rayburn a run for its money if it had hydrilla.
Well, there's no doubt. I always talk about Grand and Lake of the Ozarks being the best two lakes in the country that don't have grass, right? Mm-hmm. Because grass is just look at the difference of what grass did at Kentucky Lake prior to the carp. I mean, before the carp were there, when the grass was there was dirty 30s everywhere. Grass was gone. It was tough to catch anything. It's just that grass is the ultimate bass magnet.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Marcus, it's been an honor having you on our podcast for Revital
Yep.
Outdoors, giving a lot of great insight to Grand Lake of the Cherokees, a lot of wonderful predictions next week for Redcrest. Before we let you go, we know that you're a hot and heavy tournament angler yourself. You got a great support system, great family, great group of sponsors, local sponsors in the Lake of the Ozarks area. So anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, I think thank you very much for the opportunity. The people that have been with me or I've been with them we've been together for so long. 6 cents on that crankbait world, their square bills and traps and all of that stuff are just, I mean, they're as good as they get. Zoom has been a big part of everything I do, and there's not one fisherman that doesn't understand the power of a Zoom cricket of some way, shape, or form or color. And just a ton of different sponsors. My boat work sponsor, they keep me up. Their number one Camus dealer in the world. And, there's just a long list of it, but most importantly, I'd like to thank my family and the employees at my office. I'm a State Farm agent here in Osage Beach, Missouri, and my employees love doing whatever they can to help me do what I love. And that's a special group. So I have sheer admiration for them. And then of course, my wife is obviously my ride or die. So it's all good. But yeah, man, thank you very much for the opportunity. If there's anything else I can do for you or any other way that I can help, please don't hesitate.
Absolutely. So, from all of us at Revital Outdoors, you've been talking to Mr. Marcus Sykora, a Grand Lake hammer. He gives his predictions for next week at the MLF Redcrest event. You can follow Marcus on social media. He's on Instagram and Facebook. Also, check out his insurance agency as well. And if you want to follow his tournament path, of course, his profile is on Major League Fishing, but he fishes the BFL Ozark division. He fishes the Toyota Series Central division as well. And he also fishes a lot of different team trail stuff in the state of Missouri. So, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on board this afternoon, and good luck to you in the rest of your year. And really appreciate the insight to Grand Lake of the Cherokees. Before we let everyone go, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram, Revital Outdoors. And as always, God bless, be safe out there, and we'll talk to everyone on the very next podcast.
Thanks, Darren.